Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show. My guest today is Lori Lyons. She is the owner and creative director of Ignite Marketing, a full-service website design business, and the creator of the online program Make Your Marketing Simple. She's had over 30 plus experience of years in business, and it goes from corporate to education to small business ownership. Her experience runs a gamut over the years. All this experience comes together to help small business owners with their websites and marketing. While the principles of marketing have not changed, she says, the way we market has. Even savvy business owners can be overwhelmed and confused trying to keep up with it, and especially true for encore entrepreneurs who are just starting a new business after years of corporate work or just retiring from another business. She specializes in helping encore business owners with their online presence, marketing and content development. Her online program takes overwhelmed business owners step by step through the process of marketing in today's digital world. Then, once they're ready, her website company can give them an amazing online presence to help attract their ideal clients and really kickstart their new business. But when she's not sitting at her laptop or networking, she can be found rooting for her Atlanta Braves, enjoying the annex of birds in her backyard habitat, or avidly reading for pleasure or business. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you, Gail. It's fun to be here. And the
Well,
birds are singing in the background, so
you're like a Renaissance woman with all the things that you do. But I love your phrase, encore entrepreneurs. Just it's fabulous,
well,
and it's
thank you.
great because it's also what we're preaching with women 50 plus, trying to get them out of whatever they haven't been doing to what they could be doing, and maybe what they have been doing to a new look at where they could go from here. So I love it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting if you Google encore entrepreneurs, it all talks about what encore entrepreneurs could be doing. They could be dog sitting. They can be doing arts and crafts. I'm like, oh, that is so not us.
Yeah, exactly. So, did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Did you go to work for a corporation, or how did all this come about?
Yes, a little bit of everything. I started out as a teacher and then decided um, to leave teaching and go into the corporate world. And so just kind of started that way. And my background is in marketing and printing and design and color. And just over the years, I kept doing businesses that related to that, always working for somebody else. And then in the mid 90s, I had no idea what the term entrepreneur was. I just knew that I was tired of paying the person that I worked with 50% of my receivables to just handle receivables. And I thought there's got to be a better way than this, and I'll do it on my own. And so I kind of just woke up one day and said, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and did. So it really wasn't a journey, or it was just kind of an overnight decision that said, you know, I don't need to give away half of my profit for just somebody to care. I can do that. So that's kind of how I got started.
Well, but it's interesting because I mean, most times even when you go to work, you don't do it for 50-50. You do it for a salary. So that was not your arrangement, evidently.
No, it was totally commission, which I was fine with. I was comfortable with what I did, so I wasn't too worried. But I was in a new state. I was newly married. There was a lot of stuff going on there, and at the time, it sounded like a great deal. But as my business grew with working as a freelancer, then it just became a better option to become an entrepreneur, which really wasn't, a term that was banted around that much in the early 90s. It was, you had your own business, but it wasn't called entrepreneurship that I knew of. I just knew that I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore.
Well, that's a good wake up call.
Yeah.
So So as you went into this entrepreneurial venture, have you grown as an entrepreneur? What have you learned over the years?
I certainly hope I've grown because I made so many mistakes when I first started.
Well,
But
tell
it's
us about them because I think that's what
yeah,
people want to hear. They want to hear the mistakes and how you overcame them and what you'd never do again.
yeah. The biggest mistake that I made, I think, was not putting my processes in place. When you're working for somebody else and you're working through their process, you always think, oh, I can do this better, or I can do this different. And why is he doing it this way? Or, I want to do it this way. And then when you become your own person and you can do whatever you want, then all of a sudden those processes started making sense. It's like, okay, now I get why he did that. Maybe it makes the invoicing easier, or it keeps, it makes things easier to keep track of. And so I fought the process for a while before I finally realized I need a process. And, his process actually kind of made sense. So I did that, but then I took it and made it my own. And if there's a mistake that I make over the years, it's that I fall back to that. My business has changed. I've done different things over the years. And that business I actually closed in 2006 and went to work for other people for a while. So when I came back in and started my website company, I found myself doing the same thing, fighting the process. I'm not a very good process person. And I have to stay on top of that and remind myself that there's a reason you have process. There's a reason that you bring people in. There's a reason. And that's probably over the years, the mistake that I keep finding myself doing. So even though you learn, you make it over and over and over again, unless you catch yourself.
Well, it's interesting because many of the top people I know in the industry and beyond, they all stress how we have to have systems, and that if you don't have systems, you don't have a business to sell, and that if you have systems, you can also take yourself out of the business and have it run without you. So that's another thing that our listeners might be interested in, is the fact that if you go away, does your business stop?
Correct.
And that's a very important thing to think about because so many of us pride ourselves on who we are and what we do and how we do it. So even though we may have systems, some of us may have systems, we still don't necessarily take ourselves out of it. So that's an interesting concept. So
Oh,
you
absolutely.
said that you didn't start your digital business until when you were in your late 50s. So how did that come about? And did you have any second thoughts? I mean, usually when you're over 50 and you were in your late 50s, so I assume it was after 55, did you say to yourself, maybe it's too late for me? Or how did you feel about that?
Well, I guess first of all, I don't feel like I'm in my late or now early 60s, but so we always feel younger than we are, but no, it really wasn't. It was a business coach that said to I was doing another business and kind of doing websites on the side from that I learned from being laid off from a digital business several years before that, and just kind of taught myself. And I was doing them for friends on the side and getting paid for it. And a business coach just said to me, what are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing when you should be doing websites and marketing because you're good at it? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And that conversation was on a Tuesday, and on a Wednesday morning, I started my business. I didn't even have money to host my own website, but I thought, you know what? She's right. And and it wasn't too much longer that I thought, why didn't I do that earlier? And thank you to her for pointing that out to me. So it really wasn't a decision. It was just I'm good at it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the process system again. I enjoy the creativity, and it kind of pulls together everything I've done and helps small businesses, which I love.
Well, isn't it interesting that you say, I didn't even have money for my own website. So that meant you didn't have a little investment or little nest egg sitting around, and yet you went and started your business. So what does that say to people that say, oh, I've got to make sure that I have enough money to live on. I have to have um, I need to know I can pay all my bills. I can't do this until. How does that fit into your plans of what you did?
Well, it's funny because the business that I was trying to make work, Obviously, I didn't because I didn't have a nest egg to go into this new business, but it wasn't working, and I just wasn't willing to say, you know what, this isn't working. I'm spending a lot of time and spinning a lot of wheels and investing into something that is just not working. And to this day, I'm grateful for that. The business coach said, did a wake up call and said, do it. And sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Um, when you look at you can get cheap website hosting, well, for free, but you can get cheap website hosting for $70, and I couldn't even come up with $70. That didn't last long, but it was a good wake up call to say, value this business, put aside money, start investing in your business, because I don't want to be in that situation again. And it's, so far, knock on wood, I haven't. It's been full steam ahead since then.
So what would you say to somebody who says, oh, I really, really, really want to do this, but, I don't know if I could make a living at it and I've got nothing saved and I don't know what to do. And what would you say to somebody like that?
You find a way. I firmly believe that everything is fixable, and I hate the word no. So you find a way, even if you go work a part-time job, or you do something that's going to give you steady income to kind of do a business loan to yourself to help you get started. You also can look and step back and say, what are the priorities here? My company designs websites, but not everybody needs a website when they first started. Don't worry about that. You can hold off on that. There are other ways to get around that. Um, you know, so prioritize what you need to do. People do business without business cards. You don't need to invest. Just start and decide what you're going to do, decide who you're going to focus your target market on, decide what services you're going to help people with, what problems you're going to solve, and then just start talking about it. Networking, for the most part, personal networking one-on-one, is inexpensive. And, I would say go that way. Think of the least expensive ways that you can go out and market your business.
It's funny you made that comment about business cards, because I know a lot of people who just purposely don't have business cards. And yet I know other people who will not start their business until they have their business cards and they have their, well, I guess they have their website and they have all the accoutrements and the legal status and so forth, but they have no business. They have no
Right.
clients. So get your clients first and then worry about getting all the other things. So
Oh,
you might say,
absolutely.
well, how am I going to get them if I don't have a business card and I don't have a website and there's no place? You just start, whether you start for $10 or $50 or $100, just start, get some clients, get some testimonials, and then go from there. So
Right.
you've made a comment, at least I did in your introduction, that marketing has changed, and I'm a great believer in marketing, and I like to consider myself a marketer, and I believe it's changed too. But what do you say? What has changed over the years, Lori?
Well, I could say some of the principles that have not changed, and then we'll go into what has changed. You still have to have a target market. You still have to define who you're going to serve. You still have to define what problems you're going to solve. It's just the way we present those that I think has changed. We have so many options now that are, and I'm going to use, you can't see me, but I'm using the quote unquote free. Social media is quote unquote free to promote your business on. I propose that that's the biggest change over the years. Is things are so quick. You can get to know people so well. You have to be human in today's marketplace. You have to let people see that you're human. And I think that's where the biggest change has happened. Corporations years ago, you could hide behind the world of corporate, or you could hide behind a printed piece of material, but today you can't. And I think that's the biggest change that's happened.
Well, that's true. I mean, if well, there are, of course, I would think, I don't know, but I would think all of the Fortune 50, 500, 1,000 have people who monitor their social media, because there are so many things that go out on social media, some true, some not true.
Right.
But people complain, and I just submitted a little something for customer service, and they said, what is it that you have to do to provide the best customer service? And I wrote back and I said, listen to your customer, listen to the complaints, answer the phones, don't send an email message, call them and tell them it's taken care of. I
Right.
mean, one of my TVs is out and I'm going to have to go to the cable company because you can't get through. I held for 20 minutes one time and 20
Uh,
minutes another time yesterday. So luckily they're only like 5 minutes from me. So I'll go and I'll set up an appointment for them to come. But you can never get through on customer service. So what's the point of having it?
right.
So, you
Or,
know,
or commonly referred to as customer disservice
yes, exactly,
or
exactly.
no service. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so so you're designing websites,
Hmm.
and are they still important with social media? What it is, are they still important? Are they still relevant? I know there are certain things that have changed. A lot of people are going with one-page websites as opposed to having a website with 8, 10, 12, 20 different pages on it. But and they prefer the one page websites for each different thing that they're doing or each different product they have. But what are you finding?
Well, obviously, I'm a little biased on this answer, but
I can't
um,
see why.
yeah. But look back what happened a couple of weeks ago when Facebook went down. If your business only online presence was on Facebook, you were kind of stuck for a couple of hours because you didn't have an online presence. So if you control your online presence through your website and you control what it says, you control what you add to it, you control the message that your website does, then all of this social media will come and should come back to the foundation of your website. So I look at it as like a house. I use the house analogy a lot when I'm talking to clients is a website is a very good foundation for your marketing. And if you build a solid foundation for that with your website, then you can do whatever you want to on the top of it because it's not going to crumble. So, blogs are more relevant than ever, and that's where you put your blogs is on your website. The more content that you provide and the more value that you give people on your website, then the more they're going to get to know you as a company. And it goes back to what I said earlier about being human. This is where you see who the company is, not just the sound bites of today's social media world, where everything is 240 characters or less, or it's a 30-second video. All that should go back to a really good website that represents you. And to go to the point of the one pagers, those are great if that's what you need to put up to get yourself online. I would rather see you have a one pager than to have a Facebook page, a business page, because of not being able to own it and control it. But ultimately, you should expand it so that it really talks about your services. If you're giving your clients value or your potential customers value through your website, and they learn information and they you teach them something, then they're going to come back over and over, and they're going to remember you when they need your service.
Well, you said something which I also, want to piggyback on, and that is the fact that whatever social platform you're on, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's Facebook or Twitter or anything, they are not your customers. If they go away or if they shut you down, you don't have a list of any of those people.
No.
So you've got to do something that gets them over to your own site so that when you want to market to them, you're able to do that at your own leisure and your own pleasure. Whereas, if you're depending just on the social media platforms, they can cancel that out at any time. So that makes a big difference as well.
Oh,
So,
correct.
so what do you think the biggest challenge is then that business owners face in regards to marketing today?
Where to put their time? Because so much of the social media is free, and it's seductively sexy because it's free and it's fun, and you can go online and you can get yourself lost in all the Instagram pictures and the Facebook post, but for a business owner, it's also a free way to market. So I think the biggest challenge is deciding really where your market is on social media, and are you doing it because everybody else is doing it or because it really adds value and it's what your business needs. I think the biggest mistake and the biggest challenge that business owners have is not recognizing who their target market is and not seeing where they are on social media. If you're, YouTube, for example, one of the statistics that I always find fascinating is the biggest user of YouTube are young men ages, I think that I don't know the exact number anymore, but it's 16 to 21. And the biggest thing they search for is games. That is the largest search on Google is, game secrets. So if that is your market, that's where you want to be, is on YouTube. But if
Well,
your
that's
market,
true.
yeah, if
That's
your
true.
market is teaching, teaching women how to do makeup, then you might want to be on Pinterest or Instagram because that's where they are. So finding where your market is on social media, not just doing it because everybody says you need to.
Well, it's really funny you mentioned games because, I fly a lot and I cannot believe how many people on the plane are playing games
Oh yeah.
and on their little devices. And I'm thinking, I would not do that for all the tea in China. That is not how I want to spend my time on a plane.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, in fact, I don't even sometimes uh, end up, using their Wi-Fi. I end up just reading a book. The last time I flew back from San Diego to Miami, I didn't sleep the whole flight. It was a midnight
Oh
flight.
wow.
I read a book. I read the
Oh yeah.
entire book.
What a
So
novel idea.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I think it's really, really interesting to see how how many people are seduced by games. That is amazing to me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, we have about 5 minutes left in this
Oh wow.
segment, not quite, before we go to part two, listeners. But as you can see, Lori is, well, first of all, she has a lot of energy, which is what's really important. You cannot do the things that we're emphasizing that we want you to do if you don't have the energy. So it's very important to take care of yourself, number one. Number two, you really have to love what it is you're doing. You certainly don't want to get to midlife and say, I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore because I hate it. You want to do what you love. And so I think you can tell from Lori's enthusiasm that she's really into that as well. So all of that is a part of who you are. So what would you say in the few minutes we have left in this segment? What's been your biggest challenge, Lori?
Well, a couple of things. I'll go back earlier to my wanting to fight against processes. And that's just probably me because I don't like to be tied down. But I think my biggest challenge has been to really find and focus on who my niche is. There's marketers on every corner. There's website people on every corner. So how am I going to differentiate myself and how am I going to stand out from the crowd? And first of all, the crowd never bothers me because I think there's so much value that each of us, and I think the last statistic I looked is there was 175 billion people on the internet and that many websites. So there's a lot of business to go around. I'm not worried about, competition. But my biggest challenge has been just finding who I enjoy working with and really niching down into my target market, which is why I started looking at the encore entrepreneurs. And it's funny because I'm a video phobe. I do not, I will tell you to do video, but I don't want to do them. And I realize that if I am talking to my peeps, I'm not trying to worry about competing with the 30-year-old who looks great on video, that I'm comfortable doing video to that market. And that was a huge aha for me. It's like, oh, I don't have to worry about my gray hair or my white hair. I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm not, 110 pounds. I'm talking to people who get me and I get them. So finding that niche has been my biggest challenge. And it's a niche that I'm loving and enjoying.
Well, isn't it interesting? Because you're absolutely right in what you're saying. Because I think it's interesting to see what is your image, and let's face it. Let's face it. In the graphic world, in the graphic designer world, in the online uh, design world, you can have 15 ears and 22 noses and nobody cares as long as you do the work. It's
Right.
not like you're professing, well, this is the best way to put on lipstick, or this is the best way to get a toned body, or even, that this is the latest fashion you should wear. Notoriously, for years and years and years, graphic designers, ad people like that have been a little kooky.
Yeah.
so they can do and be and who they want to be. So Lori, see, you fit right in there and there's no problem.
Absolutely.
And you know something, your crowd, your ideal client likes that about you. They love that about you.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I mean, you're them. So they're very happy with whoever you are and that you are real and you're not trying to be somebody else. So That's all a part of this. Well, folks, we're coming down to our first break, and as you can tell, Lori is a very exceptional person. She started her career late. She is doing fabulously well. She's learning a lot of lessons along the way, and very happily doing that. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and we'll talk to you then.